Welcome, everybody. Today is a unique training because it's a little different than anything we've done before. So like I said, if you have questions as we go, put them in the chat or raise your hand and I will try to get to you. Today's training is different because what we did was last year we reviewed over 400 transition plans from around the state. And we do have a newly revamped monitoring system, which now allows for us to be able to really look at, with a lot more detail than we have in the past, to look at each LEA, and within each LEA, within their IEP submissions, we can easily see the areas that they did really well or the areas that need some work. And last year we had 12 LEAs reach 100% compliance. And what I did was I reached out to those 12 LEAs and asked for feedback on what they believe were the system's changes that affected their performance. And I collected that feedback. And we had other folks at AOE also involved with this project. And we looked at all the feedback from LEAs. We also had some of our federal TA folks weigh in. And we collected the feedback and turned the themes into a criteria. And then we built that criteria into a rubric. So the purpose of this self-assessment, and this is different than the Indicator 13 self-assessment that we have available for special educators to use when they're writing transition plans. This is totally different. This is for a school district or a high school to look at their internal system. And so we'll get through that. So basically, the secondary transition best practices self-assessment is designed to assess a LEA's systemic best practices for secondary transition. It's not designed to be a step-by-step guide to completing the secondary transition process. For those resources, there is a link here, and this PowerPoint can be available for everybody. We can get it up on the website, or if I have everybody's email, I can get that out. Basically, this tool can help assess whether or not the LEA has the systemic supports in place to effectively engage in transition planning and service delivery. So that's the purpose. The background, this self-assessment was created by AOE using best practices of systemic improvement, input from our LEAs, and feedback from national partners. The AOE asked for information from the 12 LEAs who were found to be 100% compliant for Indicator 13, collecting feedback on the systemic changes and new practices implemented by those LEAs that they believe led to their 100% compliance rate. This feedback was then used to create the various criteria within the tool. The criteria is organized into two areas, oversight and training. The section related to oversight encompasses broad systemic needs, such as the development of policies and practices documents, schedules to allow for necessary collaboration, and a system of checks and review to ensure transition plans are being assessed. The training section contains criteria related to the kinds of support, feedback, and follow-up that staff members engaged in transition planning should have access to. Please also consider this tool a living document, as LEAs are implementing the self-assessment either on their own or with the support of the AOE. The AOE is interested in collecting feedback on its usefulness and areas for improvement. The goal is to create an effective and implementable best practices tool. So the directions for using this tool. The self-assessment tool should be completed by a small team of administrators who have the ability to make policy decisions, as well as special educators responsible for completing the transition planning process. Each item listed can be scored on a scale of 0 to 2. Generally, a score of 2 represents full implementation of the criteria listed. A 1 indicates a partial or inconsistent implementation of the criteria, and a 0 would indicate that the item has not yet been introduced. A maximum score of 30 can be achieved, and while a cumulative score may be helpful for an LEA conducting multiple self-assessments over time, its true purpose is to highlight systemic areas for improvement. These areas can be incorporated into the LEA's improvement planning cycles. All right, so let's take a look at the rubric. And I just want to check and see if we have any questions. So feel free to put questions in the chat or raise your hand, but it looks like we're clear on that for now. Okay. So this is what the top of it looks like. So if I just back up a little bit, it's got the purpose, background, and directions, which is basically what I just read to you on those slides. This link right here brings you to the secondary transition resource area on the AOE website. So that's got the training videos we've done over the years, the grad readiness tool, etc. Lots of resources there. But for teams that are going to go through and do this assessment at your high school, this is where you'd start. So I'm going to just try to walk through, I'm going to use the time we have to walk through the criteria and also skim through the achieved column. So we have the overarching category of oversight. Then we have the criteria. That's the criteria that we collected from the 12 LEAs. And to, achieved column, emerging progress, not yet introduced. So I'm sure you're familiar with that format. So the first criteria, the high school develops a quality control system for consistently creating Indicator 13 compliant transition plans. So a school has achieved this if the high school has and follows a written process that identifies a lead transition special educator or special ed director who reviews all new IEPs for Indicator 13 on a monthly basis and at least once annually for Indicator 13 compliance using the Indicator 13 checklist. And there's a link to the full checklist or the one-pager. They both are the same 8 elements, but one just has more descriptive information, more comprehensive versus the one-pager, which is really nice for just a quick reference. Based on the results of those reviews, the lead transition special educator provides timely feedback and or training to staff in any areas of noncompliance within the transition plan. Okay, so, and emerging progress would be if the high school has identified which staff members have produced 100% compliant transition plans, but has not yet created a quality control system and not yet introduced. The high school has not looked into identifying which special educators are producing 100% compliant plans, or the high school currently doesn't have any special educators producing 100% compliant plans. Okay, let's go on to the next one. High school special ed case managers use the AOE NTACT Indicator 13 checklist for every IEP transition plan they write. And if the school has reached this, the high school has and follows a written review process that ensures all high school special ed case managers are issued the checklist and ensures that staff consistently use the checklist when they write transition plans. Emerging would be if case managers sometimes are using the checklist when they write plans. And not yet introduced would be if they're not using the checklist. Okay, here's another one. And this one is kind of a big one because I was surprised to see how many districts were doing this. And let's just, I'm gonna mute. Somebody's got their mic on. Just gonna quickly mute everybody. And you can always unmute yourself if you want to say something, but for now, let's just do it that way. So the high school starts including the transition plan in the IEP in 9th grade, even if that is younger than the age requirement. So for districts that have met this criteria, all students that have an IEP developed in their 9th grade year or later have a completed transition plan or have meeting minutes to reflect that the opportunity to develop the transition plan was brought up by the school team and the parent decided to wait until the required age of 16 to complete the process. Some folks just unmuted. If you don't have a question, if you could just mute yourself. Okay. The next criteria, the high school has a strong relationship with their local interagency partners. And if they've met this criteria, the high school consistently invites the higher ability transition counselor to IEP transition planning meetings. The high school provides on-site office space for the higher ability VR counselor. So Voc Rehab is now called higher ability for anyone that doesn't know that yet. And one of the hopes is that the name higher ability, not only is it more closely linked to what that agency does, hopefully it supports parents in wanting and allowing that connection to happen. Because what happens is if a student doesn't get a connection made to higher ability and they graduate and they leave the safety and the confines of special ed entitlements, they now don't really have anybody in their corner unless they're already connected to developmental services. By making the connection to Voc Rehab, well, I should be saying higher ability, and I'm working on it. That higher ability counselor is still there after education is gone, and that person can help with all sorts of things. So just think of it as you're making a connection, you're helping this student have someone in their corner. If there's emerging progress, it would look like the high school is inconsistently inviting higher ability to the meetings. And if it's not yet introduced, the high school does not have a strong relationship with higher ability. Next criteria. Time is provided for special educators to attend the available trainings and support one another as they generate transition plans. And for schools that have met that, it looks like all special educators have a professional development schedule that allows them to have completed all available transition trainings and attend new trainings as delivered. And there's just a little bit more on all special educators have scheduled time within the work week to collaborate and receive feedback on transition plans. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to just kind of focus on the criteria and what it looks like if a school has met that criteria. Okay. There is ongoing communication with students and families about plans for the future. Connections are made from the current IEP transition plan and what that student is working on at school to improve the likelihood of reaching the post-secondary goals. And what it looks like is if the high school has written policies, procedures, and schedules that ensure special educators are having ongoing communication with students and families to support the creation of IEP transition plans and making connections that are distinctly documented in a student's IEP. Transition plans are tied to what the student is working on during the school year with the goal of reaching post-secondary goals. Parents are fully informed of transition-related standards, content, and expectations. Parent training, this is what it looks like if it's implemented. Parent training is either provided as a related service, or the meeting minutes indicate it was offered and parents declined for all transition age students on an IEP. Okay, we're now in the second kind of domain here, and this is the training domain. So the criteria is this first one: high school special education staff receive ongoing professional development related to secondary transition. And if that's achieved, it looks like all special educators have a professional development schedule that allows them to have completed all available transition trainings and attend new trainings as delivered. Next up, training and information provided to teachers is put into a step-by-step guide specific to that high school. There were quite a few schools that did this and reported that they really think that this one helped them in particular. All of these were things we collected, but I just remember this one being something that people really thought significantly helped. Every special educator has a copy of the transition planning guide developed by the high school or LEA based on guidance delivered by the AOE. High school special educators are provided with instruction on the why and how to support students with disabilities around transition services. High school special educators are given explicit instruction on the why and how to best support students with disabilities as they plan for individualized post-secondary opportunities. Okay, next up. Indicator 13 is a general theme at many staff meetings throughout the year and includes ongoing review of the elements. There's 8 elements, of course, and components of a compliant transition plan. Staff can check each other for interpretation. The high school ensures that Indicator 13 is discussed regularly as a staff throughout the year. Staff are given opportunities to review elements of a transition plan and check in with one another for interpretation of specific components. Next up, lead transition special educator takes the existing AOE recommendations and sample transition plans and creates sample IEP transition plan for a generic student using language the staff are already used to at their school. The high school has at least one sample fictional IEP transition plan that is readily accessible by all high school special educators, is used to train staff in writing comprehensive transition plans that align with the language being used at the school. This is another big one. The high school has created a pool of transition assessments for case managers to draw from. The assessments measure student strengths, needs, preferences, and interests as they relate to current and future employment, higher ed, and independent living. All staff know how to locate and administer the collection of assessments. The high school has a robust collection of transition assessments to draw from, assessments that are accessible and universally designed, in which individualized assessment needs are considered, assessments that include all the areas that need to be assessed: strengths, needs, preferences, and interests. Okay, the last criteria is staff utilize the transition assessment planning tool to map out what assessments are needed for each student. The high school shares the transition assessment planning tool with staff and ensures that this tool is being utilized to map out what assessments are needed for each individual student. And just a quick note on this tool, it's very helpful, especially just prior to the very first transition plan, like when you're getting ready, you're preparing for that transition plan, you need to figure out what assessments you're going to do. And the transition assessments, of course, happen first. And you're collecting that information on the strengths, needs, preferences, and interests. And you're using that data, the results of those assessments, to build the transition plan. All right, that's it in a nutshell. So obviously, this is a tool for your district to sit down and assess yourself as a district and look at what areas, are going to be most beneficial for your district to try to incorporate. What do we have for questions? Let's see. I think there's something in the chat. Okay. First question, might there be examples of the step-by-step guides available? So I don't have that readily available, but I can try to reach out to one of the schools that said they have theirs. Is there anybody on this call that wants to share if there's any schools on the call that do have their own step-by-step guide? Laura?
Yeah, I'm happy to share with, I can put it in the chat if you want.
Sure.
Okay. One sec.
What other questions do we have? Again, the reason this training is a little bit different is because it's really looking at systems. So going through with your team and looking at these things, I think that based on what we've seen from the districts that reach 100%, hearing their feedback, hearing our feedback from the feds, and hearing how other states are doing things, we think that we're hoping that this tool can help our districts. Okay, next question. Will we need to hand in the results of our self-assessment as part of the monitoring process? No, not at this time, nothing like that. This is just a tool for your district to identify, what areas might be holding you back in terms of transition planning. Will you be sharing the document you just reviewed? So yes, as best as I can. The problem is I don't always have everybody's email because of the way Teams is. So if one thing we could do is if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, just throw your email in the chat. The other option that we can get it up on the website, and also the tool itself, sorry, is going to go out on the special ed director listserv. But if I get your email, I can get it out sooner than that. We used to have sort of like a registration page for these trainings, and then I could just export everybody's email easily. And we haven't been consistently using that. So I only have what I have in Teams. So if you want a copy of the PowerPoint in the tool, just throw your email in the chat and it'll get saved. And also, like I said earlier, if you start using this with your high school team and you have a suggestion for feedback, please don't hesitate to just send me that. We want to just get this thing where, we want people to start using it and giving feedback. And probably what we're going to do is, in addition to taking that feedback, we're going to, at the end of this year's monitoring round, we'll probably reach out to the 100% districts again and ask them what were some of their systemic changes that they made. And if anything is an outlier that is not already on the assessment tool, we'll add that. Laura, you have another question?
Just an issue with getting something in the chat. John, if I send it to you, would you mind putting it in the chat or sending it out? Because I know I shared it with you, but I've updated it. So I can send you the link. Would that be okay?
Yeah, and then I can try to put it right in the chat. Is that what you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, try that.
Okay, I'll do it right
Okay.
now.
Okay, so hang tight. Don't hang up just yet, folks. I'm gonna put a resource in the chat. And then we're gonna be just about done here. So I appreciate your time. Bear with me here. Just waiting for that email.
You should have it now.
It hasn't come through just yet, but it probably will any second. Here it is. Okay, I'm gonna copy this link. It's a Google Doc.
And while you're doing that, John, I would share with anybody who's using our new ED plan, Easy IEP. It is not, the transition format is not great yet for this, and I've been after them to fix it. So, I mean, not just me, but our district has. So anyway, hopefully, probably everybody else has too. So hopefully that'll, but it's not going to be intuitive right now. All the parts aren't going to fit exactly as they should just yet.
Okay, I just put the resource that Laura shared. So Laura, this is your step-by-step guide that you created for Burlington High School?
Not Burlington, I'm in
Or
Addison Central now, but yeah,
yeah.
it's based on what we used in Burlington and hit 100%. And so, but this is cleaner than even when we did that. So I think it's good. And honestly, it's based on the new IEP format that you all put in the AOE put in the site.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So anybody that wanted to see an example of an individual high school's step-by-step guide, which was something that was one of the themes we heard from the 100% districts, that they created their own internal step-by-step guide using what resources they had from AOE. So take a look at that. It's in the chat. Grab that link because you might not have access to that link once this meeting is over unless you have a Teams account. So copy and save that. For anybody that put their email in, I'll get you the copy of the PowerPoint and the assessment tool. And lastly, if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. There's one more question. Why isn't the state asking the personnel doing the monitoring to provide the training for indicator 13? Why isn't the state asking the personnel doing the monitor? So we have at AOE, we have basically a monitoring arm and we have a technical assistance arm. We're like attached in the middle, connected in the middle, if you will. We used to be much more siloed, but it's a lot better now. Basically, my role is on the technical assistance side. However, I work very closely with the monitoring. So when we review the 400 plus transition plans, I am one of the reviewers along with the monitors. And we do ongoing calibrations, meaning we look at the indicator 13 checklist and we'll use some sample fictional transition plans and we'll make sure that we're scoring the transition plans fairly and objectively with fidelity. So that's why. One last question. I would like all tools and forms and records on this to share. Okay. The tool, anybody that I have your email, I'll get you the PowerPoint and the tool, and then the tool itself is also gonna go out on the sped director listserv, probably go out on like the weekly field memo. It's gonna get spread far and wide. You are the first folks to really see it outside of AOE. A lot of work went into that, a lot of drafts. different versions of it. And it is where it is now. And like I said, if you have feedback on it, please share that with us and go from there. Any last questions? Laura, you have any more questions? Your hand's still up, but maybe that was before. Okay. Okay, well, I like to get you out of here at 3:30. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do. I know it's complex work when it comes to transition and the IEP and the paperwork. I understand that, and I really appreciate the work you do, and it's all good for our kids. So thank you. All right, take care, everybody.